Welcome to the Trill and BA Show. I'm your host, Felicia Ann Rose, Anuha, aka the trillest MBA you will ever know. And I'm here to help you survive and thrive in corporate America by giving you the truth and being as real as only I can be. So excited, you guys. We have very special guests on the podcast today. This is a little different, but ride with me because this very important nuggets will be dropped. And I have another resource to share with you. So today I have my friend Andre and his college roommate and / bestie, Todd. They have been friends since freshman year in college at Stanford University. Andre is a Black man from Texas and Todd is a white man from California. And normally I wouldn't say that, but that's important for this show. Now, during the pandemic, the death of George Floyd struck a chord with Todd and Andre and presented an opportunity for real dialogue that these 20 plus year friends have never truly had, a dialogue about race. Andre and Todd realized that they had such a great open, raw, loving space that they created to share their truths in and perspectives, that they needed to share this conversation with the world. And I truly believe that they are a great example for us of what having the real hard conversations are, and that we need to follow their example, which is why today I invited Andre and Todd onto the Trill and BA Show, not only to share their work and their new podcast, Healing Race, but also to talk about the ways in which we can create these open spaces to have these conversations so that we can move the needle open towards fairness, understanding, and ultimately healing. Todd and Andre, welcome to the Trill and BA Show.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Felicia. I feel the love.
I'm so excited to have you guys on the show. When Andre first told me, he was like, I'm working on a project. I was like, ooh, I like projects. And he was like, he told me and I was like, ooh, we need that. Please do that. Do not be afraid. So one, I want to congratulate you guys on the work so far. I love what you're doing. But I want you, in your own words, to tell us, why does this conversation mean so much to you each personally?
Todd, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, it pains me to see that we can't have a conversation about race. It's kind of like the pink elephant in the room, right? We know it's affecting our country. We know it's affecting us. And so the inability to have that conversation and then to see the conflict that kind of comes out of that has just pained me. You know, I love people. I love this country. I believe that to be able to move forward together, whether it's as a society or in your relationships, right? You have to be able to talk about things. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions, misunderstandings, ignorances that exist because we feel unable to have the conversation. So the reason it matters to me is because I want to see more open conversations, real conversations, deep conversations about the topic. And it mattered to me on a personal level because Andre's a dear friend, you know, and we have talked about everything under the sun, but this for our first 25 years of knowing each other. And when it dawned on me that we hadn't had a conversation about race, I felt lacking, and it saddened me because I could only imagine that it had impacted his life. And so here's something that had impacted his life that I had never known anything about for 25 years of knowing him. So those were some of the reasons that kind of moved me to kind of do this work.
I love it. Andre?
And for me, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I was all gung-ho about this at first, because it's a very controversial subject. And because race, especially in the context of the United States, is something that we all experience and we all in our own way are experts about. However, what shifted my perspective is knowing what an unhealed life looks like. And I know what an unhealed world represents. And in my own healing work, and like many of you out there, my healing work began with who? My family. So, and it's still going on. And but what that means is when you are unhealed, you're just going through the same things over and over again. So we had, back when I was a young man, Rodney King, and then all of the incidents, and then George Floyd. And I'm like, here we go again and again. And so I said to myself, so for 400 years, we began going round and around with white people, and nobody wants to break up. So we still living together, which means we have to occupy this house. We have to find a way to get along. And in order to do that, you have to lean into the messiness of the situation. So I personally believe that you cannot evolve to your highest self until you get in touch with your lowest self. And let's face it. Slavery, racism, quite frankly, all of the isms have been some of the worst manifestations of human character in history, right? And if I was going to use my life for anything, I would use my life to help eradicate that and show people what a healed life and a healed world could be.
I love what both of you have said. It fills my heart because as I work with my clients, because I do career consulting, as I work with people who are just struggling to figure it out and wondering, like, is this happening to me because of my race? Like, I've always felt like I wish I could just get rid of that. Like, you should never have to question, is this happening to me because of whatever box I've been told by society that I need to check? And I think the healing starts in the space that you guys have created with Healing Race. And so I want to understand from your perspective, how did each of you know that you could be a safe space for each other to have these conversations?
Andre, you want to take that one first? Because I feel like that came up a lot for you.
So a safe space to have these conversations. That was a period of time. First of all, safe really does imply trust, right? And I will be perfectly honest, just because I've been friends with this person for decades, and things that happened in the culture were so galvanizing doesn't necessarily mean that there was the trust there. Right. However, as I stated in the intro, when people come to you out of genuine concern and interest, you rise and speak your truth. And so I said, well, I will trust my motivation to want to do good in this world. And as his motivation be revealed, in the course of doing the work, then we'll go from there. And then I also just know Todd's personality and the things that are important to him. And over the years, I've kind of cultivated a relationship with the personality and also the being behind it. And so that's why I was able to take this leap. But it was an evolution. And I finally, because Todd noticed I was very closed in the first interviews because, Black people, let's be honest, have been so exploited in the media or memed or troped or whatever. And I'm like, we were talking about it yesterday. I said, there was a huge amount of unsettled emotion thinking that this was some sort of way for you to trope Black people and use me as your device to do that. And so I was, as I saw that wasn't happening, through, him showing his heart and his earnest intention, then I relaxed, I, evolved in the conversation to become more of myself and then to share.
What I love is that you were able to express that, and that Todd, you stayed, because I don't know how I would have taken that.
Yesterday, when I called him a do-gooder white boy, I said, every time you open your mouth, I just hear do-gooder white boy. And it's not an admonishment, but it's the skepticism of, okay, is this really earnest or something else?
Reputational. So the do-gooder white boy to you, Andre, is someone who does something not always just for the goodness of it, but for the reputational advantages that are gained through it. Is that?
That is one manifestation, yes.
So Todd, how does that make you feel? Like, I have to admit, watching y'all's shows, I had some moments, I was like, dang, Andre, that's your friend.
I told you, I dropped some shit.
Here's something interesting. So first, I want to just play up one thing that Andre said, which was, there's an assumption that just because you're good friends with someone that you have a trust to have the conversation, in an instinctive, automatic trust to have the conversation about race. I would say, if anything, sometimes it goes the other direction because you get concerned about losing the very thing that you have, right? like Andre and I had cultivated a strength of relationship that, as Andre said to, in other spaces, he said he thought our friendship was fine. Right. And so when we've seen over race and over politics, family relationships, friendships, get split apart. And so I think it's important to recognize that sometimes talking to strangers that you have no vested interest in can almost be easier in some ways, even though there's not the history of trust. There's not a lot to lose.
I had resolved after 2016 just to stop going there with people because after that election, friendships broke up and people were in their feelings. And I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to go there and just be copacetic about it.
Yeah. I mean, to Andre's credit, he asked less questions at the beginning or less probing questions that kind of came out later, but he did open up relatively quickly in terms of his emotional life, and there's a moment in our first conversation, which is in our first episode, where he shared his very raw, real fears for his safety. And it was a pivotal moment in our conversation and in my own understanding of Andre, because I had no sense of that in my 25 years of knowing him, that he carried around some kind of internal fear for his safety, that it really, in some ways, I just think set the tone for the whole conversation. So even though he says he was guarded, and he was in some ways more reserved than he would normally be, he still was very open and took a risk. Yeah. Right, to go there. In terms of some of the things he said to me, and we have a future episode we haven't released yet where we kind of talk about this. I had a lot of experience with my grandfather as a Holocaust survivor, having his own reservations about non-Jewish people, right? Right. And I had to go through an experience of over many, many years having conversations with him about it, where I knew my non-Jewish friends. I knew he would love hanging out with them, but I had to but he also endured the Holocaust, right? Mm-hmm. And so I had to, I guess, develop mechanisms to not take things personally or to be upset about someone's true feelings about something, and just to understand it. And so, at some point he talks about, in one of the episodes we do have released, he talks about the psychology of ownership. He feels it kind of exists within the white psyche. And, at some point I point blank asked him, I said, do you think I feel like I have a right to Black lives? Right. And I wasn't saying that to put him on the spot. I wasn't saying that because I was upset by him. Saying, the implication with him saying that is that I, as a white person, and I just wanted to make it really personal, but I didn't take it personally, right? And I think there's a sense you just have to know who you are. Right. And if you come with good intentions, it's not to say that everyone's going to always take you for those good intentions, but at some point, the light shines through, I think. Your heart shines through if you're really coming from a good place. And I knew Andre would see that in the beginning or eventually. So I think that's kind of how I approached the conversation, and what made it kind of not just easy for me to hear the things Andre said, but truly interested in where they came from, why, to understand what his world has been, because my world is not his world, right? Has not been his world. And I know I've been shaped by my world. So I have to give him the respect of knowing that he's been shaped by all the experience he's had. And therefore I want to know them. I want to understand them better.
Did you, Todd, feel like you could create a parallel between your grandfather and his story and then some of the things Andre, because at the end of the day, trauma is trauma. Yeah. Holocaust is trauma. Being Black in America is trauma. There's a lot of similarities in the trauma. It's not the same trauma, but there's a lot of similarities in that type of trauma being dehumanized by something that you just cannot, about who and what you are. And so were you able, because you knew your grandfather's story, because he had shared his story with you, was that a way that you were able to connect better with Andre and hear, or did it not connect dots for you at all?
Oh, it very much connected dots. And there's an upcoming release where it was, a profound connection between the two for both Andre and I. So I couldn't not make that connection. did it enable me to do it? I don't think you need to be the grandson of a Holocaust survivor or Holocaust survivors, I should say, to connect with the experience of being objectified, being stereotyped, being, maybe outcast or fearful or whatever it might be. I mean, one of the things Andre and I did with our episodes is we watched them again. And then we asked questions about the things that were going on when we had these conversations as a way to just go deeper about it. Because in the moment, you're just responding raw. And so, but then there's another layer when you reflect on it. And Andre asked a really profound question to me that I wouldn't even thought of thinking about, but he said, have you ever felt fear for your safety? And I shared 2 events in my life where I did feel fear for my safety. And then the click to me was, well, if Andre feels like this, are you telling me, Andre, that this is the kind of thing you're feeling on a regular basis?
Not even regular, on a daily basis.
It's every day. It's every time I walk outside my house, right? You just kind of are on guard, and even at work. And so this podcast, we focus on workplace dynamics, right? And so my hope with seeing you guys is that, because I feel like every Black person has at least one white friend. I'm hoping. This sounds so crazy, but it's the Trill NBA show. So I have one white friend. Her name is Trisha, and we've been friends. We became friends in the pandemic. We actually have never met in person. We met in a course that we took online together, and we just connected and clicked. And she is one of the most awesomest human beings I've ever met in my whole life. And I would fight people over her. And I told her today, I was like, hey, I'm going to interview. I shared your podcast with her. And I said, I'm going to interview the host for the Trill NBA show. And I said, you're my only white friend. And she was like, oh. And I was like, I know, that's not good. I need to change that. And so I just am inspired by you guys, because for me, when I'm at work, I'm just pretending. Like I feel like one of the things that I teach is to teach people to, as a way of to keep yourself safe, is to make friends with the whites, right? Like at work, I'm like, you got to make friends with them. You don't have to be friends with them, but they need to feel comfortable with you. Yes. And that is just the world we've lived in. And so Todd, I don't know if you realize that, but the thing Andre is talking about, we really have been taught and we've learned that in order to create a safe space, that we have to manage the comfort of our white coworkers at work. So for Andre to say things that make me uncomfortable saying them to you, I'm like, oh, damn. It's a big deal because we are not culturalized to do that.
May I say something, Felicia?
Yeah. Sorry.
So, especially with this podcast focusing on work. And I don't want Black people to hear this and think that, blindly trust and blindly speak your mind. You really have to, because I hate to sound like this, but there could be sometimes this feeling that people are coming for you because of your race or whatever. And trust me, it's going to be very, very subtle. So you tiptoe out there. And at any moment, if it felt part of saying those things to Todd, even though he and I are business partners, so he can't fire me. This is the business that we're running. But part of that was to test his tolerance. So like the same way you would test metal by striking it, to test the tolerance to see, are you really ready for those hard truths, right? And I've done that through a series of, my own trust exercises and cultivations to let me know, okay, I can go ahead and enter a vulnerable space, and hopefully I won't be exploited. The way I try to translate that to work is I would tell people in minute amounts as you can, to use your parlance, with the whites, lean into vulnerability. Not by any means saying go tell them all your business, because they will go tell it.
Facts.
Don't tell folks all your business. Don't talk what's going on in my house.
No.
However, you can, for example, because just so full disclosure, I'm gay. Everyone who's going to see this, the minute you hear my voice, I like man. I am marrying a man. and I came to my third party employer because, Guillermo is the name of my fiance. He lives in Costa Rica. We met in Rome. It's a Hallmark story. I'll tell you sometime.
Yes.
But I had to tell him, I was like, Guillermo and I are separated by a continent. I live in North America. He lives in Central America. And I do such a work where I can work remotely. And I said to my boss, I said, so I'm getting married and I'm marrying a man. And he, this is our situation. And that was a way of leaning into vulnerability. But what helped cultivate that for me to give, because I personally believe that's kind of personal, was number one, the company showing that we want to know these things about our employees through HR reach outs for LGBTQIA plus people. And then on top of that, with the manager really being how he positioned himself in a relaxed way, in such a way like, I'm here to help you be your best and in this role, right? Mm-hmm. So what I would like to tell people is find ways to lean in minutely into work, and then that will you grow over time and cultivate. And because people will spend their political capital on you. They will say, Felicia's an amazing, you got to have her on that project. Like she will do cost accounting, whatever the thing is, like nobody's business. But to your point, Felicia, they're not going to expend that capital, that social capital, and they're going to say that phrase unless they have an understanding of where you're coming from. And that's more than just being, the hard worker. We all think that I'll just work hard and that'll speak for itself. No, it won't, because everyone is either trying to work hard or fake like they're working hard. Either way, perception is reality. So and I learned, I hate to just say this, but if you know me, I like the Kardashians. I learned that from the Kardashians, control the narrative. So control your narrative.
Damn.
Oh my God. Do you want to do the Trill NBA show? Because baby. Ding, 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 ding. Now listen, we got to take a quick break. But when we come back from the break, Todd is going to explain to us how to talk to his white brethren at work when we get back. Hey guys. So you've been wanting to get promoted, right? But you keep banging your head against the wall. You keep spending a lot of late nights, early mornings. You're like doing the most to get promoted, and yet you still ain't got promoted. And you've been doing great work. They praise you all the time, tell you, oh, Felicia, we're going to promote you at some point. You just have to wait, bide your time. You know what's happening? You don't have the right tools, and you are not building the right relationships. And so, starting March 5th, I have a live coaching course for you. It's limited spots. There are only 20 spots, and they are going fast. So I need you to go to trillmba.com/coaching, and you too can sign up to register for a pre-registration call, and I'll make sure that you're the right fit. It is a cost. It is worth it. We are also going to work with you for your employer to pay for you to join us as a professional development credit. So don't worry about the money. Let's chat about it. But this is a course that you need to help you navigate the workplace, get paid, and get promoted. So go to trillmba.com/coaching to sign up for a pre-registration call with me. All right, now back to the show. All right, we are back from the break, and we are here with the hosts of Healing Race Podcast, Todd and Andre. You guys, I am so proud of you guys.
Thank you.
I love what you were doing. Andre was preaching gospel before the break. I'm like, have you been listening to the Trill NBA? But see, Andre went to Stanford though. So don't be fooled. These two went to Stanford. Okay. Enough said. But coming from the break, I promised that I would ask Todd to help us as people of color that need to connect, right? Because building relationships is key to getting anywhere. Like we are not islands. We cannot do things by ourselves. And as minorities in the workplace or anyone outside of whatever the majority is in your workplace. So this even goes for if you're a white man in a woman-dominated field and you're like the only white dude, you still need to build relationships with your coworkers, even though you might be odd man out. And it happens. I have worked with clients that has happened to. And so Todd, as a white man though, because most of the companies are white male dominated, what is the best way for us to open up those lines of dialogue, knowing that we are afraid? We are afraid of you. That's just the truth.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing to understand, I mean, when you said that, my first thought was, I feel like the anxiety goes both ways. There was a research study in the college environment, and they were wondering why in a diverse school, why were friendship circles still so segregated? And when they dug down deep into it, what they realized was that white people were afraid to just sit down at the table with black people, and black people were just afraid to sit down at the table with white people. There was just a discomfort. Ultimately, it was about whether they would be accepted or rejected.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a real fear around that in career circles and academic circles and in social circles. I mean, I know even though I'm, doing this series with Andre, I still feel it sometimes. Does it feel weird? I was, at my daughter's gymnastics, some of her fellow classmates are Black and the parents are there. And it just, there's a little anxiety more than it would be to just reach out to like a white parent. Just because it's like, well, will this person want to talk to me? Right. So, I mean, I think the first thing is just to realize that there's anxiety both ways in terms of cultivating relationships, and someone just needs to break the ice. And, we can have a conversation of whose responsibility is it? And Andre and I actually had some of that conversation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you want to rise in the corporate ladder, if this is important to you, you need to take the initiative. And it has come up a lot in my conversation with Andre, how much networks matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Because I point blank said, I don't feel like I'm a success because I don't feel like I developed enough of a network that maybe, and what I mean, now you see me sitting here in my home, it looks comfortable, and it is. I like it. But what I mean is, and I don't want to sound materialistic because I am grateful to God what I have, but could my life have been bigger or in some sort of way more impactful because Todd is someone who's very ambitious about impact, and so am I. Had I have poured more energy and not been as afraid, Felicia, that is straight truth. When you said we're afraid, and I was afraid of so many things. I confessed on the show. I said one of my big fears about being Black is that people immediately perceive that I'm not smart. So I kind of hold myself inside and not really speak up with ideas because I'm afraid of sounding stupid. And then, I mean, it's just classic imposter syndrome that we all have, no matter what your race. But getting over that fear on both sides, like Todd said, is going to help everyone just feel better and create better outcomes for the company.
Yeah. And I think, I want to echo something that Andre said earlier, which is you should test the waters. It's not like you should, go in talking about racial discrimination in the workplace as your first conversation.
Don't do that. I would say don't bring it up at all. Actually, it has nothing to do with your promotion.
Just have a human conversation, right?
Yeah.
Test the waters of how someone receives you and develop a relationship just as you would anyone else. So don't go in guns blazing in terms of being vulnerable even and sharing. But at the same time, on the other side, I would just say my experience of the world, and this is just my experience of my social circles, right? My career circles, friend circles and the like, is that most people that I have come across in the white community have positive intentions and maybe even desires to also bridge racial divides when it comes to relationships. And, Andre just shared his feelings about worrying about coming off not intelligent in communication. We were in our first guest conversation, and we would welcome all of your, listeners and viewers. Come on the show. We are welcoming people to have these conversations. If you haven't had the conversation about race and you want to experience it, come on. And what happened was Andre shared that feeling that he had within the guest conversation. And there is a white male individual in our first guest conversation who was taken aback by the fact he just never even had thought that there would be these anxieties about playing into stereotypes that Black people have had to confront. That this would be something in the back of Andre's mind or other Black males or females, right? That in the corporate environment or otherwise. So it shocked him. And then he kind of responded by reinforcing his experience and his own feelings that diversity was actually desired in his workplace. He's like, I've been in the meetings. He feels like it's genuine. He knows from his own personal place, it's genuine. He was trying to reassure. But then I asked a question, which was, what if, so you've imagined all these positive, constructive conversations in the workplace across diversity in your workplace. But what if there are people you're interacting with right now in your workplace that have the same fears that Andre do, but you just don't even know? And it was like an eye opener to him. He's like, I never even thought that could be possible. And it was just the way that I never thought Andre was fearful for his safety. Right. You just don't know. And so, and he really, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do with that information, but it seemed to impact, at least open the window of awareness a little that, wow, I might be working with people right now who have these fears. I don't know. Maybe he'll interact with them differently. Maybe he'll open the space for them to express. I don't know. But this is all to say that he, I think, would be emblematic of, I think, this is my experience of the typical white person in this environment, right? I'm not saying that all white people are like that. Right. Good intentioned, open to conversation, open to hearing what's behind the facade. But I do think there's a lot of people of goodwill out there who are willing to open their arms to a relationship. And again, I'm not saying to, in the first or second or third conversation, to be bringing up these intimate details of how you feel being a Black man or woman in the workplace, but just to know that there are people like that guest of ours, I think in a lot of places. And so it's worthwhile to take the risk and to kick the tires and see what's possible here to start that relationship. Yeah.
And the thing is, I would tell my clients and my listeners, like, stay focused on your promotion and the things you need to do for your promotion. Don't let race and stuff like that, politics in the workplace, distract you. But at the same time, understand what's at play, what's happening, who's who, who's what, and learn how to build those key relationships with people who are influential in the organization. And what that means is those people most of the times are white men. They are the ones who are the leaders in the organization most of the time. And so you have got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable to start having just regular ass conversation.
May I say something?
Yeah.
Because what you're saying, Felicia, is completely resonating with me as a gay man. So there was a period in my life before I started watching football, everyone. And I was like, I don't know how to talk to heterosexual men. I know how to talk to queens and I know how to talk to women. Right. And, I know how to talk to Todd, but that man, that archetype of person that you're describing, I had no idea. And so for me, my method of kicking the tires was number one, okay, I'm like, what are men interested in? And sports is one of them. I used to watch Housewives, but I was like, you know what? And so there was a scrimmage game. I'll be just perfectly honest. There was a scrimmage game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans. And normally I wouldn't have cared less. This was some years ago. And I said, you know what? Why don't you just sit here and watch and see what this is all about? Because even though I played football for a little bit, no one really thoroughly explained the game to me. Right. And so once I brought up Wikipedia and watched the game and figured out what I was looking at, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. And I do admire the athleticism. And so I found that way of the sort of entree that you're talking about was through sports and hobbies. Like I did the MS 150 one year, and I am not an active person. And I found ways to just try to put myself out there and to help people become comfortable. Like you said, we have to manage the comfort of others. But I think like Todd said, someone has to take the initiative.
Right. And the onus is on the person who is trying to get ahead. Like the onus is always going to be on the junior person. And most of the time, you're the junior person. So I want people to start thinking about it like, well, why don't they ever have to? Because they're not the junior person. You're the junior person, and that's who the onus is on. And so what I'm happy about you guys having this conversation is that other people are going to specifically other white people, the white people we work with, they're going to see your body of work. And I'm going to start sharing this with my coworkers at work. Be like, I'm going to start with the DI folks and the EBRGs and say, hey, I found this and I thought this was interesting. I don't know if you guys would ever be interested in like facilitating, and I know I may be speaking out of turn, tell me to be quiet, but like I could definitely see y'all going to different companies and facilitating with small teams in the companies this honest dialogue to help break the walls down. Because I'm going to tell you right now what I've seen and what I've seen with my clients at different Fortune 500 companies. There's a lot of lip service around this. There's a lot of performative behavior, but like having real conversations like you're having, like the fact that, Todd, I don't know how much you realize just you listening to Andre, raw and authentic Andre, is the game changer. And that you are comfortable with being uncomfortable, just demonstrating that for other white men specifically is the game changer. Because
I didn't really realize that, Felicia, until Andre started saying it, to be honest. I really didn't. I really didn't, because it's just that saddens me though, that because when he once thanked me for doing that, like in one of the episodes, and I never said this to you, Andre, but I felt, I don't know if sad's the right word, but sad that you felt you had to thank me for just doing what I think we should do to other human beings, which is just listen to them. And what I would say in addition to that point, because your question is really, I'm still processing it in terms of how to connect with people across the racial divide. And I think what Andre and I, the core ethos of what we feel, and Andre, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we've had this conversation of what Healing Race is about, is humanizing.
Yes.
Show them you are, yes, common interests and all of that. And we know that works in friendships. But even more than that, I would say is like humanization. Show them you're a human being, When Andre shares with me, I just see him as a human being. I don't see him as a black human being, black male, gay human being.
Gay.
Right. I don't get to take offense. I just see him as a human being. And that opens me up. And I know in my own experiences in the workplace, I advocate for the people I care about. Yeah. And the people you care about are human beings, people you have seen their humanity.
Exactly.
And everyone loves, everyone has family, everyone has, we go through common human experiences. Yes. And I'm not saying share your whole life, but give people chances to see your humanity and give them chances to share their own and to get interested in them, because people who care about each other, they're there for each other.
I'm sorry, I just have to ask this question. Even though I've known you for so long, where does this open-heartedness come from? And is this deliberately cultivated? Like, where is it? Because it takes a really open heart to do something like this. And it takes a huge presence of awareness. Where does all this come from?
I think people are generally, unfortunately, afraid to have intimate conversations. Mm-hmm. And I just grew up having that. I really love people. I really do. And I just grew up wanting to therefore know about them. Right. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to know the superficial parts of their lives. Right. I wanted to know them. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I'm definitely not alone in that. Yeah. I just think a lot of people fear going to those intimate places, but they want to. Every time, Andre has had, I know, this similar experience. I was just sharing with one of my daughter's best friend, their family came over for dinner, and I was sharing what Andre and I are doing. And I just, the interest is you can feel the interest. She was at a birthday party. I was sharing with some of the parents. People want a chance to have intimate human conversations. And I guess I just had them a lot when I was younger, and they feel good. They just feel good to have those, to be heard and to listen to someone else and hear.
What does it feel like when you talk to me? What does it feel like when you talk to me?
It's like time passes, to be honest. When you're the most vulnerable and when you share the most honestly, it's like I'm not even aware of what else is going on in the conversation. I'm just so captivated. It's like, and I hope this comes off well, because this can sound like an objectification, and Andre and I had that conversation, and it's not meant in this way, but it's almost like being part of a movie. When you're in a movie and you're engrossed in a character, right, and the story, it's like you're living that story. When Andre tells me that someone questioned whether he went to Stanford, I then take that on as a character. When he says that someone at a bar asked him if he knows who the Speaker of the House is, and I take that on and I start to think, who has ever asked me that question?
Right.
Who I've never been asked those questions, but then I'm interested in the story of what that experience is like. Right. And I feel like people are generally like that. That's why people love movies so much, but it takes sharing the story. And that's what Andre and I are about. Like, yeah, we talk policy sometimes and we talk what's going to solve this and our different points of view on it and where we're coming from. But ultimately, we tell stories about what it's like to be a white man, what it's like to be a black man, what's like to be a black gay man, right? We're telling stories. And I just think there's like a glimpse. I once said this to Andre, and I didn't always have this perspective, but I think intuitively we all feel a little bit of this, which is when you see a baby, there's just very little that blocks your love coming out to that baby. You just see a baby and it's like they're just pure joy and innocence and just something to be loved, right? And at some point, it just occurred to me when I started feeling the expected love for my daughter who wasn't born yet, I just had this thought of like, everyone's been a little baby at some point. And we like forget that little, that pure humanity that people don't lose it. But as Andre has explained, from a racial point of view, and as we've all felt, I think, in just living life, we put these little exteriors on and facades on, you know. But really, I think what we want is to know what's beyond the facade. So that's my general approach, Andre, is I'm
about to start crying. And Todd, I could not be more prouder to be your friend.
Well, me in return, in reverse. It's just like, I know it's not easy. It wasn't easy for Andre to bare his soul about what it's been like to be a black man in America. It just wasn't,
that's hard.
But he did. And every person I tell about his story, whether they watch the videos or I just tell it to them, their eyes go wide. It's like they just don't realize what the experience is like. Right.
The emotion behind it.
And the emotion behind it.
And what I love about this is I think for Black people, and Andre, tell me if you agree or not, but I think for Black people, we feel like we know y'all. Like it's like this thing, they get to be dumb about us, but we have to know about them. But I think we know the caricatures that we've all been taught. This is why I think racism is so insidious, because there are caricatures of whiteness that white people are enacting white people come to work and pretend to. That's what I have learned. I'm like, oh, you don't want to be here either. Like, I'm not the only one,
you don't know which fork to use at a formal dinner party.
Yeah. Like we're all like playing this dance in the workplace. And I think a great way to connect one-on-one with a coworker is like use your intuition to see which spirits you can connect with. Because I have made some cool ass connections at work. I mean, we're not friends or by any means, but like, I get them. Like, we have connected in a human way. And I think that's the beginning. And it does make the workplace easier when you feel that you belong. Like, that's why everybody's talking about DEIB, like belonging became this buzz thing, right? Because everybody wants to feel like they belong, which is why we create all these boxes in the first place, right? But I think the coolest thing about what you guys are doing is you are breaking down, just by showing up, you're breaking everybody's perceptions, not just white people and not just Black people, but like everybody is going to have to, anybody that has intellect is going to have to watch your show and question, or listen to, the podcast and question what they've been taught. Because you can't watch Healing Race and just still stay stuck wherever you've been taught. You can't watch this show and just stay stuck. And that's the reason why I wanted to have you guys on the show, is because at work, we can't stay stuck where we were. We're gonna have to push forward, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us. We're going to have to change in order for all of us to survive and be better and do better. Like, at some point, we've got to come together, and then we've got to refocus our energy on healing the earth, because we have done so much damage to this earth that if you got kids, it behooves you to get everybody on the same page of let's heal the earth. Now, I am a hypocrite. I say that as somebody who still uses plasticware and drinks water out of water bottles. I'm a work in progress, but I do care. And I realize, like, everybody wants to have their little subset of caring, but it all ladders up to the same thing. We need to care about humanity, everybody's humanity, and we need to care about the future and our survival. Totally. And what you guys are doing are forcing us, whoever watches, they will be forced to question their personal beliefs. And I'm hoping that extends to the workplace. I'm hoping that somebody sees your show and then tiptoes over to the only Black person on the team and says, "Hey, I saw this and I would love to talk to you about it if that's okay." And then I hope you Black people be like, "You know what? Yeah, let's talk about it." But permission to be frank. Like, we gotta have, if we gonna have this conversation, we gotta have this conversation, and you can't come with no BS and get mad. Like, you gotta be open to it. Like, you gotta be like Todd and know that I might be like Andre.
And you gotta be like, well, I was gonna say, you gotta be like Andre too, which is, you said it right on, Felicia, which is we just have to be willing to question our assumptions.
Yeah.
This is just it. Andre was willing to do it. I was willing to do it. We just have to question our assumptions of what we think about people and the world, and just know there is a deeper story to everybody. And in our guest conversation that we recorded, the first conversation, we're going to record a second, that just came out so clearly. You got the white female who's concerned about being seen as a Karen, but has a good heart and wants to connect. You see the Black male police officer right in the midst of the Tyree Nichols incident, who expresses his own, the way that the dialogue, right, the conversation around law enforcement and the Black population has affected him in his relationship with the Black community.
And he was open to being challenged on his contribution to that relationship. Because to quote Marianne Williamson, the only thing missing is what you're not giving.
Exactly.
So, there's something behind all the preconceptions and the facades that we get. And most often that what I've experienced is a really cool human being on the other side that you can connect with.
One person at a time. So listen, got to take a quick break. Gonna pay a bill or two real quick, and we'll be right back with the most important thing when we come back. Hey guys. So I hope you're enjoying this episode. I am. Keep listening to the Trill MBA show to get these great nuggets. But in the meantime, we are relaunching our Patreon and it is going to be amazing. So head over to patreon.com/Trill MBA show and sign up to become a Trill MBA show Patreon. We love your support for the show. Being a Patreon, you're going to get some exclusive content. You're also going to get some free coaching. You're going to get some other freebies when we start doing live shows. So listen, you don't want to miss out. So if you love this show and you want to support us, go to patreon.com/Trill MBA show and join our Patreon today. All right, guys, back to this awesome show. Okay, guys, we're back. So last night I watched y'all's most recent episode, the one about our Black Americans being deliberately shut out from advancement. I felt like, Todd, I think by the end, I felt like you were like, okay, I think I get it. But I still felt like it was hard for you to get what Andre was saying. But then also, Andre, I felt like I wanted you to do the double click on Todd's point, because it felt to me that Todd was so focused on the micro. Like Todd was so like, but the individual is not thinking that way. Like it's just not, it just was like, I'm trying to remember the exact thing Todd said and I can't remember. And I should have wrote it down. But
the basic gist, I think,
that
was
people have to make their own, like people are making decisions for their best interest, right? And that's fair because that's human. Like that's the human default. And so, Andre, when I think about for you, you were trying to say, yes, but you can make a decision for your best interest. And also the same decision can also be helpful though to someone else. Like it's not a zero-sum game. I think that's what you were trying to say, but it felt like I don't know if Todd, did y'all come to an understanding? That's what I want to know.
Well, first of all, Todd, can you summarize what we talked about so I can remember?
Yeah. I'll try.
Andre's like, I've done so many shows.
Yeah, I know. We've done so many. So I think where the basic crux came down to was, and where I came to understand where Andre was coming from, we had different views about the prevalence of deliberate guarding of advantage, let's say, or deliberate shutting out of opportunities, right? Andre thinks it's more prevalent among white psyches. I think it's less prevalent, but still prevalent. I don't deny at all that it is prevalent, or even outrightly, pushed for in some circles, in some white communities. He says something really, really eye-opening, though, when he said that he tries to connect the macro outcomes to individual behaviors.
Now I remember.
And it's hard for him to understand how we could still have such inequalities with there being such a large population of people who, let's say, are good meaning overall. And for me, that was a big eye opener, because I said to him, I could see how that feels that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, because why wouldn't it, right? If you see this kind of continuation of inequalities, you want to know where the source of that inequality is. And you know the source has to come from somewhere. And so how is it not the case that Black people are being shut out, right? My take on it was that, kind of to your point, Felicia, there are just inequalities that have been kind of baked into the cake through history. And I will admit that some of those were very deliberate, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously slavery, but even
the whole system is deliberate, though.
So anyways, you could be an individual now who's just, making choices about what you want taxes to be like, or whatever your choices are policy-wise or individually. But because there's inequality of opportunity, there's inequality of resources, there's inequality of networks that people have, right? Because if you have largely Black networks and largely white networks, right? And generally because of history, there's more white people who have connections to power, then obviously networks matter, right? Which is why integration of relationships is super important. I mean, that's not the only reason. Just getting along and being friendly and caring about each other.
Being human beings.
My opinion was just there's a lot of things baked into the cake where you just have people kind of living their lives, and that is the perpetuation, to me, a large part of it. And there's an example most recently in a study around that just came out around tax audits. And what they found is that the algorithm was auditing more Black taxpayers. And when they really dug into how that was happening, it wasn't someone putting in like an instruction in the algorithm, tax more Black people. But what it was doing is it was taxing people in such a way that, first of all, they were targeting EITC and earned income tax credit. And so there's a large proportion of Black people who are using EITC for, again, possibly historical reasons, right? And then the kinds of errors that were occurring, which, Andre's a big, preaches a lot about access to information, right? One piece of set of information is like what to do with your taxes, I'm assuming. It happened to be that the kinds of errors that were occurring were more likely to be in Black populations because they were the easiest ones to, essentially what the algorithm was doing was targeting people who were going to be the easiest ones to deal with or the easiest ones to process. They were targeting based on efficiency. And it happened to be that targeting based on efficiency also targeted more Black people.
And to me, it sounds like a very convenient explanation. I'm not saying it's not true. You have some study that proves it, but it just like, I'm going to say what I said to Todd in the show. Isn't it funny how the pie always bakes? So then the next algorithm, oh no, it was really doing this. And that just happened to target Black people. And so 400 years of hearing explanations like that, you begin to think, you know what? I'm not the prettiest girl at the prom.
Yeah. No, and I can understand how that could be the instinct.
See, I think, Todd, your default so within Todd is this benefit of the doubt.
Yes. And within me not.
and that's what's hard because in actuality, because of slavery, right? And all the ways these systems through Jim Crow, all of that has compounded. So then when you do build an algorithm, when you build the AI, when you build all these things, all the inputs come from a historical reference.
And I agree with that.
And that is where the racism is. And that is why this thing is inherently racist. So even though today, the person today who's coding and building the algorithm may not have a racist bone in their body, the reason why, we're going to go after check cashing places who are doing quick EICs and payday loans before, so lending you money based on what you're supposed to get back. If my algorithm, if we're gonna look for that, well, the vast majority of those places are in Black and brown neighborhoods. Why is that? Because, and then you start doing the math all the way back, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, we have to, Todd, and we need your help. Forget about the individual today. And no, you're not raised, stop being afraid of being called racist. Because that's the problem. But they're not racist. They're not racist. You're right. They're not racist. But everything they've been using to build whatever system or whatever thing or whatever program or whatever has the roots in the racism. And then racism is so insidious. It just kind of travels along. Racism is like the water, the underground water. And it causes all these weeds and it gets in everywhere. And as soon as you try to take one out, another one sprouts up.
And I'll give you an example. Like when they were doing training for facial recognition AI, part of the test data set was putting in faces of gorillas. So that it could tell, you have a white face and you have a gorilla face, then you have a Black face, and it would be more likely to pick out Black faces. That in and of itself.
Why are you doing it that way? Why don't you just get a mass number of Black people, white people, Asian? Why don't you put all the people, right? And so I don't know why that person decided to do that. I don't know how they coded it. I don't know what their thing was, but I can tell you this. The people who are building the things are white. And so they default to, I'm building this to help me. And they only see themselves. And so it's not that they're inherently racist. It's not just that they've only been focused on me.
Yeah, it's not just that they only see themselves. There's another research study that came out. I don't even know if it's come out yet, but it is hard to distinguish between different Black faces if you haven't been around a lot of Black people, and vice versa. By the way,
no, that's for every race.
Natural inclination
that's everybody.
That if you haven't been around a culture, they all look the same, right? And so, to your point, Felicia, if it's white people, their honest perception is they don't know how to distinguish if they haven't been around a lot of Black people in their lives.
Listen, I have not been around a lot of Asian people. I'll be honest. Yeah. And if I went to China and I've seen you see the pictures on TV of all these Chinese people, and I'd be like,
yeah,
it's hard to tell them apart. I agree. Yeah. So we all
Asian people, please do not be offended.
Listen,
I know the differences between the Asian race, the Asian country.
Do you really?
No, I really do.
No, I don't mean the Asian country. I mean specifically Chinese people. Like if you see the pictures on TV of like China, like this, I saw these pictures during the pandemic and they were in Wuhan and they were showing all the people and all the people masked up. And when I tell you from the mask up, I was like.
But it is a natural, Felicia, you're talking about a natural phenomenon. And they researched this, right? For people who have less exposure, there is a harder time distinguishing. Because
isn't it funny how white people have maximum exposure? Everybody know what they look like.
Because they're everywhere. They're on TV. They everywhere. But you know what?
That makes me sad. I understand.
But when I have some Asian classmates and stuff, and I guarantee you, when they came over here, all the white people look alike to them. When they see white people on TV, all the white people look alike to them. Yeah. So because a lot of times white people look alike to me.
Mm.
Well, in Southern California.
all them people at the gym, I'd be like, wait, did I see that woman? No, that's a different woman. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all some variation of the white chicks from Friends. That's what I'm from Victoria, Texas. But I know that's not how I want to be seen. And so I am working on myself because I was raised a certain way. And I think that we all need to recognize that we were all kind of raised a certain way in this construct. And it's mind fucked us all.
Yeah.
None of us are for as much as we be mad at white people about why don't y'all understand us, or why are y'all like, people hate the Kardashians. I know you are a fan, Andre, but people hate the Kardashians because all they've done is take all the features that were, big asses and big lips and full breasts and all these things that, hypersexualized Black women, and then made us either into hoes or ugly, right? But now all of a sudden this woman is bronzing herself to be 20 shades darker with her lip filler and her fake ass. And now all of a sudden she's the definition of beauty. I'm like, Black women been looking like that since the ages. Like what? This is weird. That's weird. Like you just stole, and then when she had cornrows, everybody's like, oh my God, Kim Kardashian has cornrows.
I'm not trying to preach now. Do not talk to Todd about cornrows.
She has
We filmed an entire episode about cornrows yesterday. Because he wanted to wear some back in the 90s, and I had to put the kibosh on that.
That's your real friend, Todd.
Thank you, Felicia. I was trying to protect you.
You don't need nobody's cornrows. Don't do that. Don't do that. First of all, your hair can't really sustain. I mean, I guess it can, but then it's going to grow stuff and be matted. Like, you don't really want that for your life. Don't do that, Todd. Don't do that. That's your real friend right there. Listen, guys, I could talk to you guys all day. I have two questions. One, Todd, what advice do you give to white people, especially at work? Like if they're at work, what do you want them to be actively fighting racial justice? Like what's like one or two things they can start to do?
Well, I think the first step is having these kinds of conversations, to be honest. And that's not just to pitch the kind of thing we're doing, but just to see how eye-opening it was for me, to see how eye-opening it has been for other people I've talked to, or, our guest conversations. You can't really care about someone you don't really know, and you can't really know how to act unless you understand what's going on. I do think there is, and I shared this with Andre, and this came through my conversation with him. I do think there's a responsibility to kind of open the door to the potential of having this kind of conversation. Yeah. And it's not to take anything away from the empowerment of Black people to start the conversation too, because I know people who have and have succeeded in doing so. So I'm not trying to belittle the Black community, right, at all. But I do think that there is a sense in which it can be a little extra uncomfortable, or there could be extra barriers because of history. Yeah. To expect a Black individual to say, I want to talk about race, right?
Yeah, it's not safe.
Tell me, I want to share my experience, or, tell me what it's like to be a white person, like Andre asked me. So, I think in the right moment at the right time, when there's, first just getting to know them as a human being, aside from race, but then at the right time, in the right context, to say, I don't really know what it's like to be a Black woman, a Black male, a Black person in America. Can you share what that's like? Because I only have my preconceptions, my, the things I've heard in pop culture. I think there's a lot of genuine interest on the part of white people. And I think, and I don't know, the Black community better than I do, but I think with the right intention, I think most Black people would be willing to have an open, honest, constructive conversation about that.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Most people, I think we all want to feel seen, and we all want to be heard. And so if somebody's genuinely, and you can feel it, your intuition will tell you that person really does care, and they really want to make change, and they do feel lost. And we all feel lost because, the people who actually want change, we feel lost because it's like, how do we do this? Right? Like, how does this work? And it really, truly is one day at a time, one conversation at a time. We're going to continue to take 20 steps forward, 30 steps back. It feels like, when you see a mass shooting, a targeted mass shooting, no matter what group they're targeting this week, right? Like, we're all suffering, and we all need to come together. We are at the reckoning. And so I think that's the most important thing for me. Most important thing.
Yeah, the second thing I'll share, just to put it out there, is, be willing to kind of publicly give feedback, share positive feedback about your Black colleagues, because it really does, I think, and the research has shown this, it does make a difference for a white person to hear a white person share something about a Black. That's in any kind of groupings, whether it's race or ethnicity or nationality, that it will help someone to think twice about whatever bias may unconsciously just be in their head, to hear someone say something positive across race. I think matters, and can make a big difference to get over the natural biases that we all in some ways carry around. So those are the two things I would say.
We're going to take that clip of Todd, and we're going to package it so you can send that to your boss. Thank you, Todd. Okay, but from both of you, and Andre, I'm going to let you go first on this one. What is the most important thing you want people to take away from your show, Healing Race?
So, everyone, the most important thing I want you to take away is that healing is worth the investment, and take a chance in life, because you'll be happier on the other side. That's not to say that the middle won't be uncomfortable or disruptive. And it's designed to be disruptive, but you're going to like the person, and you're going to like the environment that you have on the other side. So be willing to take a chance and let some magic happen.
Listen, you better show them you went to Stanford. Okay. Todd, from your perspective, what is the most important thing you want people to take away from your show, Healing Race?
Yeah, I'll do a double click on Andre's. He kind of went the personal, so I'll go the society level and echo something you said, Felicia, which is we just can't go round and round doing this. We got so many issues to tackle as a society that if you want your children, your grandchildren to live in the same world with the same kinds of conflicts, then you can sit on the sidelines, right? But if you want a different kind of world where there's more engagement, then you have to give more engagement. And part of that is starting to have these conversations, healthy, meaningful conversations, so that we're not living in the same world, 30 years from now, 10, for crying out loud, 10 years from now, right? Down the road, that we make meaningful progress, not just policy wise, but in the relationships that we have on an everyday basis and how we live together.
Amen. You guys are so amazing. Like, I'm so proud to know you. Andre, I'm so proud of you because I remember when you first started talking to me about, I'm going to do this. And I was like, yes, and do it big. And then my half Nigerian Capricorn was like, and then you got to be on TV. And he was like, wait, slow down. Hold on. Wait a minute, Felicia. What are you? But I see big things for you guys because you're driving change in our society. And I want Healing Race to I want God to take it and blow it up and spread it all across the world. Like, I want to see it in different languages. I want to see different hosts of different countries. And like, I would love that it spread to like Ukraine and Russia, like, and all those things. Like, what you guys have created is a space that needs to spread and go viral in our world, because we need to connect as humans and have these conversations and feel good and safe about doing so. And the way you guys are so respectful and so loving to each other, I just need more of that in the world. So I fully support your show. Everybody go listen to Healing Races. You can see them on YouTube. You guys are on all the Apple, Spotify, correct? Right?
We'll be launching the audios soon. Yeah, right now, but we'll be launching the audios too. Yeah.
So get ready, so just be prepared when the audio comes. Be there. But I love you guys. I love you both, Todd. I know we haven't even met in person, but you're stuck with me now because Andre's stuck with me and you're stuck with Andre. So it's just proxy.
Yeah, this is a thing. I agree.
Yes. So
mutual.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and sharing this. I'm trying not to cry because I'm so happy about what you guys are doing. Now, if you need some advice or help about a specific situation, go to trillandba.com/coaching to schedule a 45-minute consult with me to strategize and walk through your specific work situation. In addition, you can always email me at ask@trillandba.com. I'm either happy to answer your question or connect you to the right people if I don't have the answer. Again, that's trillandba.com/coaching to schedule a 45-minute consult with me, or ask@trillandba.com to submit your question, concern, or listener letter. And if we answer your listener letter on the show, you will get a free 45-minute consult. Thank you guys for coming on the show. I love you much. Blessings and abundance to you all. And until next time, keep it trill. The Trill and BA Show is a Fair World Corp. LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Brian Little. Keep it trill every day, y'all.